There were many things missing when StarCraft II was first released. The entire initial UI was a big question mark considering Blizzard had this beautiful BattleNet back in Warcraft 3. The most common rumor for the weird beginning was that StarCraft's BattleNet team was experienced in consoles, not PC, but I digress. The ability to switch regions was non-existent, plus you had to buy a whole new game to get a European or North American or Korean version, and most importantly, LAN was missing. Which was odd, considering how many Blizzard games were a staple at LAN parties, and how Brood War was such a huge esport that it truly started esports as we know it, and competition will always benefit from having LAN. But they thought it wasn't necessary, and maybe some people argued it wasn't. Until a very famous drop occurred in one of the biggest, most expensive tournaments ever put on, with Blizzard developers in attendance. This is the story of the GSTL at IPL 4. Before we were given the option to recover game, if you dropped from a match, you just dropped. That's it. You were either so far ahead you were awarded victory by a referee, or the game was even enough to just simply have to regame from scratch. LAN would have solved 99% of drops, and, well, of course it doesn't help if, say, the electricity cuts out, like maybe a super special Brood War tournament. But I guess Blizzard thought 2010 was a year everyone would have perfect internet? I don't know. Thankfully, they gave us an option to continue our game, but later than 2012. For those who weren't around in 2012, two things were happening. One, IPL, or the IGN Pro League, was a huge tournament. And specifically, IPL 4 was set in Las Vegas, a big deal for a number of reasons I'm sure you can guess. 2, the GSTL was StarCraft 2's biggest offline team league, at least until Pro League swapped over. It was hosted by GSL, and it usually happened in Seoul, Korea. A beautiful thing happened for IPL 4 though, where not only was there the IPL tournament, there was the GSTL Finals between StarTale and Prime. Both of these teams were staples of StarCraft 2 from the beginning, and both had some star players. While you might recognize quite a few people from both teams, a testament to just how long our current pro gamers have been playing, the two most important people there were Marine King Prime and Parting, true stars of their respective teams. After Maru took Game 1 off of July, yeah, that Brood War July, StarTale brought out the big guns in Parting, who took out Maru and Boom Boom. In turn, Prime brought out their big gun in Marine King. The map? Entombed Valley, a 4-player spawn. The meta? Pure Bio versus Charged Archon. The game? Back and forth and amazing. The stakes? Probably the series, since whoever won this was almost guaranteed at least a few more victories for their team. After a brutal 20 minutes, Parting runs into the middle of the map and is surrounded, but nonetheless gets an amazing engagement, and Parting takes the supply lead. But wait, does he have a Warp Prism to continue the momentum? This game is really close. There's a Warp Prism in the main. Oh my god, Parting's gonna win.
Gonna be able to set up a flank. Oh no! Oh my god! Let's hope this doesn't last. Parting now has a setup with the Warp Prism.
The dreaded drop screen. People held their breath, hoping that the timer would not count down to 0. At 0, the game was up to the referees. But the timer kept ticking down, and the deliberations started. During the countdown, the crowd started a now infamous cheer.
Let's hope he doesn't actually drop it. I think we'll be able to save him. We have the Golem Wizard on our side. Right now.
Many of the most famous StarCraft 2 developers were at the event, including Mike Morheim and Dustin Browder. This drop gave us one of the most famous photos of esports, and Dustin Browder became known for two things: rocks and drops. Finally, after about 20 minutes, the verdict was announced: a regame. The decision to regame was incredibly controversial, as it seemed clear at the moment of disconnect that Parting had a huge lead. Up 40 supply with a Warp Prism unchallenged in the main base, 6 Vikings and 3 Marauders to a whopping 18 Zealots, 8 High Templar, 6 Stalkers, instant reinforcements, and he was camping production. But history can't be changed. and Marine King had a second chance to lead his team to victory. Which he did, by the way, taking out the next 3 StarTale players and receiving the trophy, which added to the controversy. If the drop didn't occur, does parting have the momentum to give StarTale the victory instead? I'll always argue yes, and that he should have been given the win. I take some solace in the fact that one player continues to have a successful StarCraft 2 career, while the other sort of bowed out of esports with a bit of controversy, but that's a video for another time. After asking for 2 years why StarCraft 2 isn't going to get LAN, this moment in history basically proved everyone's point that we should have LAN. We should have started with LAN. I think everyone who ever complained about it missing felt extremely validated at the time of the drop. About a year later, with the release of Heart of the Swarm, Blizzard implemented the Recover Game feature, and it was certainly an improvement. But we really shouldn't forget that the start of StarCraft 2 was extremely bumpy. While StarCraft 2 led the charge for what we now know as esports, it really did provide an example of what not to do to the other esports that would eventually overtake us in player base and viewership. Sometimes I dwell on what things would have been like if today's knowledge about successful esports was applied to StarCraft 2 back in 2010. Would StarCraft 2 have kept its top dog status? Maybe, but that's also a video for another time. Let's all just join hands and be incredibly thankful that while we were never given LAN, we'll never have another situation like parting versus Marine King Prime.